Around the World segment tonight. The mainstream media continues to walk on eggshells around Muslims, even if it means downplaying the Holocaust. An article from the BBC suggested that the Holocaust is a sensitive topic for many Muslims because Holocaust survivors settled in Palestine. Now, the insinuation here is very clear that Holocaust survivors stole Israel from Muslims, but I guess the BBC doesn't think that's offensive. With me now, former IDF soldier and former NYPD officer Mika Danzig. Mika, thanks for being here.
As always, thanks for having me, Liz.
Mika, this is quite the story here. To insinuate that the Holocaust is a sensitive topic for Muslims, first of all, it should be a sensitive topic for everybody because of the number of Jews and other people who were exterminated by the Nazis. But that's not why the BBC said it was a sensitive topic for Muslims, was it?
No, the BBC is showing its anti-Semitic bona fides again. It does it on a regular basis. It's anti-Israel and anti-Semitic bona fides again. Literally just 2 weeks before, or less, from writing this offensive comment in an article that was supposed to be about British-born Muslims studying the Holocaust, where they put in this unbelievable comment. After an Israeli female police officer was murdered, stabbed by Palestinian terrorists, they wrote a headline, the BBC's tweeted headline saying, you know, 3 Palestinians killed after deadly stabbing attack. So, as if the Palestinians were the victim.
Right, so and the 3 Palestinians, by the way, just for our viewers' edification, were the attackers of the Israeli police officer who were killed after they killed the Israeli. Yes. Now, I just want to get to the bottom of this. So they insinuated that that the Holocaust is a sensitive topic for Muslims because essentially some Holocaust survivors settled in what was then British-controlled Palestine. So the insinuation here is that Israel, after it was created, that they stole the land from the Palestinians.
Yeah, I mean, it goes so beyond that. I mean, the reality is the Holocaust, as you said, should be a sensitive topic for everybody because 1/3 of the world's Jews were killed in 4 years. It should be, frankly, an even more sensitive and introspective topic for the Muslim world, in particular for the Arab Muslim world, because it was at the behest and bequest and demand of the Arab world that British-controlled Palestine, which was designated back in 1917 to be a homeland for the Jewish people, was denied as a safe haven to the Jews of Europe who were about to be slaughtered because the Arabs demanded that not a single Jew be allowed to move in to British-controlled Palestine, and they were trapped in Europe at the demand of the Arab world. It should also be a sensitive topic for Arab Muslims, again in particular, because their hero at the time, Haj Amin el-Husseini, who was the Mufti of Jerusalem, he was an ally of Adolf Hitler. He was hosted by the Germans in Berlin. He led the British SS troops in the Balkans going after Jews and murdering Jews. And he actually engaged in planning with Adolf Hitler to start concentration camps in the Middle East if the Nazis were to win the battle at El Alamein against Montgomery in World War II against the British, because he wanted to start concentration camps to kill the 1 million Jews living in the Middle East at that time.
Right. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's so disgusting here. The victim mentality is what gets me here, as if anyone could be, as if the Palestinians are victims of Holocaust victims. I mean, this is taking the idea of progressive or liberals, their victim mentality, it's taking it to a whole new level that I'm not sure they want to tread on that water.
Well, the reality is this has always been part of the Arab narrative, which is that Israel exists because of the Holocaust. The narrative in the Arab-Israeli conflict from the beginning was that because the Europeans committed the Holocaust against the Jews and did this terrible crime, that the Arabs were made to pay the price for that crime by having Israel created and having Jews move on to, quote, Arab land, ignoring completely the fact that there were always been Jews living in the Holy Land, that the only time there's ever been an independent country at any point in time in the land of Israel has always been a Jewish country. There's never been an independent Arab country in that land ever, and that Jews have a right to live in their indigenous homeland. They ignore all that, and they ignore the real issue here, which is not that the Holocaust, or that Israel exists because of the Holocaust, but that the Holocaust happened because there was no Israel. That's the reality, and that's the thing that the Arab world doesn't want to admit, and they don't want to admit how much they were part and parcel of participating in the Holocaust happening and how much they were cheering it on and how to this very day, Mein Kampf and the Elders of the Protocols of Zion, 2 of the most hateful anti-Semitic books in the world, are bestsellers in most Arab countries.
Right, and I mean, I don't think it's too melodramatic to say that if the Holocaust is a sensitive topic for Muslims, it's because many Muslims, particularly radical Muslims that live in the Middle East, are not offended by the Holocaust, they're just offended by Israel.
That's exactly right. They're offended by the existence of Jews in the Middle East, period. That's why when you look around the Arab world today, There are no Jews living in Arab lands. They were all, a million Jews were living in countries dominated by Arab governments throughout the Middle East, from Morocco all the way through to Iran and Iraq. And between 1941 and 1955, all those million Jews were booted out of their homes, were forced to flee, were subject to Nuremberg-type laws, were subject to massacres and pogroms, and they were all forced out of their homes. Most of them ended up in Israel with not a dime to their names. They restarted their lives. They're not complaining right now. They're not living in refugee camps. They're not claiming the UN owes them money, right? They just went on with their lives, and they're no longer refugees, and yet the world focuses on the Palestinian Arab refugees, who are still refugees to this very day.
Right, so let's loop this around to where we began, and that's at the BBC and their anti-Semitism, or their line within that article that was clearly anti-Semitic. Did they apologize for that? Well,
they ended up removing the line because, you know, both British Muslims and British Jews complained about how offensive it was, but they never really apologized. They gave a quasi-apology for it, just like they gave a quasi-apology for their offensive headline when Hadass Malka, the Israeli police officer, was killed. And they've done it over and over and over again. The BBC has an anti-Semitism problem. They have an anti-Israel problem. Every time an Israeli is killed by terrorists in Israel, the terrorists are referred to as attackers or militants. They never call them terrorists. Meanwhile,
right. Well, I mean, that's the same. We see that all over. We see that in Europe. We see that here. Whenever there's a radical Islamist who attacks and kills, they are never identified by their motivation. They are always called an attacker. Or here in the United States, we've seen so many times they're called a shooter, a gunman, in order to vilify the weapon, not the individual and their motive here. It's sad that after humanity has experienced something as gruesome and destructive and awful as the Holocaust, there are still people who almost seem to just disregard it. There are still people who are anti-Semitic. It's awful. Mika, I appreciate you coming on the show and exposing this. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.